Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Businessology Show. Of course, I'm your host, Jason Blummer, and our firm, Blummer CPAs, is a sponsor of the show, and we have been for a long time. Guess how long? 9 years we've been doing this, and here we are headed into our 10th year. We're changing our format up. It's really exciting. And it is an audio podcast, but we're moving this into video cast now, making a couple of tweaks so you can also hear us on Spotify and Amazon podcasts. So a lot of listeners listen to our show, and it is about agency growth, digital agency growth, and the ups and downs that brings for any creative entrepreneur. And I got a really special guest. She's been on here before. Really just a dear, close friend, Meghan Phillips. She's the CEO of Honey, and this is a creative marketing agency, and they are rooted in the niche of agricultural food, beverage industry, these kind of things, just crazy innovators. We're going to talk about some of that. So Meghan's vision of empowering the passion of her clients, team, and community is evident in just her community involvement, her career, all the things she's been doing, and she's been doing this for a long time. So I'm really excited to kick off this 10th year we're going into with my friend Meghan Phillips. Meghan, welcome to the show. It's awesome to have you.
It is awesome to see you, Jason, and I'm up here in the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains of California, but I'm so excited to join you and entering your 10th year.
Very cool. So nobody has ever had this background that you have had before, and it's not a Zoom background. It's actually, those are real trees behind you.
This is 100% real, but there was no way I was going to miss this opportunity to talk with you today. And I even upgraded mountain internet to make sure this was nice and beautiful.
Very cool. Well, thank you for hanging out with us. People can learn a lot from you because of the things you and your team do. So I kind of want to take us back. You and I have a common friend that people have heard us talk about a lot, Adam Davidson, who wrote the book, The Passion Economy. And he really highlighted you and I in that book and a lot of other great entrepreneurs. But you and I were pretty excited he devoted chapters to you and I, which is kind of like.
And a lot of time.
Yeah. He flew to see us and hang out with us. That was crazy.
I know. For years, he followed our stories. And I was like, where is this going to go? What are you going to tell about all? This has been a long journey.
Yeah. Well, and so
it was awesome.
Yeah. And I want to hit a little bit of that journey too, as we're going through it. So, yeah. And so you and I have known each other because almost close to 10 years ago, we found you. I think we bumped into each other on Twitter. We did some consulting with you guys and have been involved with you guys and watched you grow and change and all the things you guys are innovating through that time. So I want to go back, Meghan, and just ask, what was it like back then when, was that new? Like, let's say 10 years ago, how far were you into leading Honey at that point?
Only 3 years. So when we connected, that was probably the moment of infancy where I realized entrepreneurship is not a linear direction. It's more of a confusing ball of chaos. So it was very early in Honey's, sort of story when I found you on Twitter and realized that you could provide great insight into some of the challenges we were having, not only on the client side, but also on how we were valuing ourselves. And really, I think, I've said this before, I think you changed the trajectory of my own mindset and really where Honey was going to go, because, you have to love what you do. You have to get up in the morning and realize that you have value, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing is that idea of value. So yes, you joined us in a basement in California with no windows to talk about value pricing.
Yeah.
And I still laugh every day that I made you do that because it was sort of weird.
Well, it's the only place we could find, I think, right? To kind of get that done, right?
Or afford at that point, I think. Right, I was like, hey, I'm going to fly. I'll spend all my money to fly you out to California, but you got to bunker up in a basement of a photographer friend of mine.
That is so cool. So it was back then it was pretty stressful, right? When you were trying to learn how to do entrepreneurship, especially in just a digital agency, especially with the passion you have and the way you want to do things, you kind you're an all-in kind of person. And so that brings a lot, that's hard sometimes to manage that passion. Were you stressed back then? Wow.
Jason. Yes. I was absolutely stressed. I think that I was so all in that I had blinders on. I wasn't actually taking a step back to think strategically. And I do say that because I talk to entrepreneurs all the time to remind them that, you can put blinders on fast and get into the weeds and just be cash flow or client driven, that you forget about actually why you're doing it. And, we were beyond stressed. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. we just knew we had to pay bills and work really hard for our clients. And, you took us out of the weeds a little bit.
Yeah, very cool. Well, one thing we've seen is patterns in entrepreneurs' life, and we've even struggled with this. When you go through those harder, dark times, entrepreneurs are passion-driven people, right? That's why they're doing this, right? Because it's really it's a hard job. Sometimes when you lose your why or you kind of lose your direction, that's when it becomes a grind for the entrepreneur. And I guess 3 years in, you were starting to hit some walls. Were you losing your passion then, or have you lost your why and found it again? Because that's pretty common probably for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Oh, 100%. I think you nailed it. I think we did lose our why. And I think I've lost it maybe a few times along the way, but it was a matter of my own grit and reset to be like, hey, if I've lost my why, there's something that's wrong on the outside or internally in processes that are making that why just get a little bit diluted. And if you kind of always go back to that reset, you usually it's pretty evident what it is that is, creating that chaos. And at the time when we connected in a basement, it was a client had completely taken over. They were in the driver's seat. We weren't lifting our heads and thinking strategically. We were letting them run the show. And, for us, it was a moment in time where we needed to regain why we wanted to do things. And for us, it's storytelling of agriculture and food and beverage. And, for them, it was sales. And we realized that sales wasn't going to get us where we needed to go.
Yeah, that's cool. So clients, and that I remember, and we won't say their name, but that was a really big client. And at that stage was probably a really cool client to have. And so, but it's weird as entrepreneurs, we let clients take over because we want that money to pay the bills, right? Pay our rent and pay payroll. And so what was that path to let them take over? Or do you even know the path? Or did you just didn't know I have to do everything they say? How did you get in that hole, that place?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I think that we were in a place of, infancy and, cash flow accounting. We were also pricing ourselves by the hour.
Yep.
We were also letting them drive strategy. And my background is more on the marketing strategy side of things. And I think I let myself lose my voice and let that client sort of drive strategy, even though I knew it was wrong, even though I kept saying to myself, why are you doing this? There's opportunities in other sectors, but it was a good learning lesson. And I think what came out of it was stronger processes that really gave more trust in our own internal, I would say, expertise and experience. And now we have a process in which we know that, all those years of late nights and working in this industry is trusted by our clients.
Yeah, very cool.
Not taken advantage of.
Right. Which of course, a client can try to do that because they want as much from that service provider as they can get. And so you have to be the strong one to kind of go, no, some of this I get to control and say things about, which is kind of cool. So so if I'm thinking maybe there's a creative entrepreneur listening and maybe they're struggling with their why being gone, going, this job sucks. I hate it. I know it's my company. It doesn't mean I like it. What do you say to them? Because I know you can get that why back. So don't be freaked out if you've lost it. Do you know how you got it back, or how do you do that when you lose that purpose?
One of the things that we have done over the past 5 years is we have set an annual retreat. And it's sort of a way for us to reset not only what is our vision, what is our mission, why do we get up in the morning, what are our values, And I would say it evolves every year. I mean, and I think people sometimes that talk to me feel like it always has to be the same. And I think it's beautiful to know that like as your organization grows, as the global environment grows, your mission and your values may change slightly. But for us, we always reset. And I will tell you now, when we write a proposal or we onboard a new employee, the first thing we do is say, you must align with these value systems. And it's really an important moment where it's the beginning of our proposals. This is who Honey is. This is what we believe in. And these are our values. We want to make sure that you adopt those and resonate. And it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you're really looking for, quick production, work that, that is driven by your strategy, not our strategy. That's okay. But let's not waste time and have a lot of conversations that go on in which we're probably going to have a path that splits at some point, It's really been a moment in time where there's adoption by employees, there's leadership adoption, but there's also client adoption to all of those pieces of the why. Now, if you kind of feel like you lost your why, that's okay too. But usually it takes a lot of soul digging to remind yourself and quiet time to figure out. You have to create it, because if you're just in that rut of client, I mean, that's where I was when we talked. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see that there's something missing.
Okay. So, all right. So it's two different things I'm hearing you say. So if that creative entrepreneur running their agency loses their purpose, they have to personally step away, get to a different place in their mind, their soul, and go, was I on the right track? But for team and clients, you have to invite them into your purpose and say, I know the purpose. I'm asking you to come into what we're already saying the purpose is. Is that what you mean by onboarding team, onboarding clients, and telling them you have to believe these things? Is that what you mean?
Absolutely, 100%. And it is challenging to get quiet sometimes. So going back to that first, option where you're realizing you don't have a why or you've lost it, go and seek support. I always say there's an amazing opportunity to find either a coach like you or, just other peer entrepreneurs who can help you really just dissect what's going on. We all get in our own heads. And it's good to get people to give you some really good constructive criticism. I'll never forget when you told me I was a crazy train. I
didn't say that, did I?
You did. You totally did.
Wow.
I think it's so great to be open to understanding what essentially could be going wrong. And it's something that can bite you a little bit, but if you feel like you're telling yourself your own, stories that keep sounding too good in your head, sometimes you may need to have someone tell you that you're a crazy train.
Well, and so that takes being in a trusted relationship. And when you find that, you can start to hear those hard things, trust somebody you're with that can tell you that. And I think that's a key for creative entrepreneurs to have that other person. Could be a partner, right? Could be some of your leadership team. Your leadership team is just so strong and transparent and truthful. They'll say anything because we've hung out with them lately. And they're brilliant people too. And when you have people around you like that, you get to be a little nutballs, right? Risky. You can kind of let your hair hang down and go, am I crazy, y'all? Because tell me if I am. And having that feedback really can change you and help you grow.
Absolutely. And it's really just letting that, you hire people smarter than you, and also make sure that they feel like they have actual change making ability, right? I always want people to have a voice, whether it's a peer, a partner, or a coach, because you can't hear your stuff in your own head all the time, because it's not the perspective of the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're kind of talking about team models, and you've had partners. You have a strong leadership team. Y'all have grown. Which model is best for you, or are they just for different seasons of team, or was that intentional, or did it just work out the way it worked?
Jason, it was surely not intentional. Let's just say that, Yes, I had a partner for the first 7 years of honey. I believe it was about 7 years, maybe a little bit longer. And, it was a great, great ride. But I think what happened is, you're right, seasons changed. She had a passion for a different type of creative, which was
Yeah.
awesome, and explored it, where I was still really rooted in growing honey and growing where I wanted honey to go from, like, my vision and my passion. And honestly, when my partner left, it actually cracked open for me a bigger fire. And it was a moment in time where I realized that I realized that, like,
Wow.
when you have a partner, sometimes if their fire isn't as big as yours, you kind of dilute it. So I just really leaned into our why more. And I grew our team. I doubled our team in a year and brought on just incredible people. And I just decided to go all in on my passion. And, I want to get up every day and do design and marketing for food, beverage, and agriculture, and make sure we have really intimate relationships with our clients, and make sure that they're served in a way that is successful. And I will tell you, this year was a year of tremendous, challenges with COVID, tremendous growth for honey, because we had to roll up our sleeves and switch a lot of things up for a lot of people who are hurting bad. So it was just and it actually brought more passion to what we did this past year, because we realized we can be a good partner to people and care.
Nice. Yeah. And you can begin to love your team and love your clients, and really only want to work with those people that you truly can love and help, that want you to help them in that deep way. That's a very cool model to get into. And it's hard, right? Because then you're pouring your emotion into these relationships, and sometimes it don't work out, and you start to rip your heart out when you're dealing with people you start to love, and that becomes harder. But maybe is that risk worth it when you pour your emotion and your heart into service then?
Yeah, I think going back to the passion economy, just to take us back to where we started, Adam Davidson always said, there is profit and passion.
Yeah.
And people think that you kind of do passion projects and it sounds free.
Right.
And I think that one thing that has really, really carved out a moment in time for me was actually putting passion into your work actually creates long-standing relationships. And in a year where we could have lost a lot of business, people really knew that we passionately wanted to help them and figured out ways to keep us on board. Yeah. And also going back to that sort of ripping your heart out moment, there was a really amazing mentor who told me, you can care, but don't carry. And it was something that has continued to stick with me. Like, I can care a ton and I can care deeply about my clients, but at the end of the day, like, it is their business. So there's moments and times where I go, I care about you, but I'm not going to carry all of the things that you have to carry, because it is it is an engagement. It is a transaction. And sometimes business happens and you lose those clients, right?
Yeah.
But throughout the whole time, but I'm not going to carry it all. That's a good tip that I've got. Yeah.
I love that. So at some point, team models are so important to you. You really got into culture. I think you have a team member that's just I know Mishi is an operational person, but a culture, you've said culture is your thing. Why culture? Why did that become a big deal? Is it because you had some blow up somewhere, or why did that become such a big deal in how you operate honey?
I think bottom line, it comes down to, I want people to have careers with honey and not jobs. And I don't necessarily think I knew that maybe 4 years ago. I kind of realized that people were treating this as a job. And I really do want to create an environment where people can see themselves having a long-term career and making impact and bringing their own passion to honey. Yeah. And, Mishi, who you mentioned, she is our operations and culture manager. And I realized that if I invested in culture, which as a CEO, sometimes, it's hard to do all of the financials and strategy and corporate, culture can weigh on you. It's a really big thing, especially in a year where we're looking at, for us, we had a big year of understanding where our social justice stood. Where were we in the conversations, like big conversations big about, stuff. Very big. But we realized as we started to dig into data and numbers, not only being female led, but we aren't minority led. And we needed to understand why we weren't recruiting in a way where we had more diversity in our applicants. And it's been a really amazing journey for Mishi and I to learn more about how to be an anti-racist company and to really think about like marketing and design. It's not an environment in which has had a lot of opportunities, and she's really led that. And it's been, if we invest in that, we're actually seeing people come to Honey because we care about culture. We're seeing leads care about that transparency more.
Wow.
And it's been a big shift. I don't think I've ever seen in my life a lead intake form that says, we like you because you care about your employees and care about culture.
What? That is awesome. Because
people care. They're looking under the hood of your agencies now. They really are.
Wow. Okay. So now culture and just not assuming we're anti-racist companies, but starting to figure out what are we doing that portrays the wrong thing, or what are we not intentionally doing that shows what our heart truly is towards these cultural shifts. You're saying those are becoming table stakes for how we even financially operate in our engagements. It's no longer a nice fluffy thing internally. It is now starting to become a positioning move for agencies. Like, is that what it is? That strong?
I mean, I think it's a requirement for me personally. That's a personal thing, and I'm learning every day from so many people. And you know, it's a journey. I don't think I think it's a journey for the rest of my life, but I do think putting culture as a primary piece, you know, and again, we're 14 people or ish. And I want to say at 6, maybe this is something that the CEO does handle, you know, where the CEO makes a carving out of culture as part of their own job responsibility. But really, in the matrix of an agency and in a matrix of how marketing and design influences, I do believe that you have to realize that you have an impact, an influential impact, not only on your clients, but on what you're putting out in the world. And so culture's got to be a piece of what you're doing, is thinking about, well, how am I making that impact? And it's just been one of those things where we do really just want to think about it more. And culture not only is about, you know, thinking about all of our values, but also does the team feel like they have purpose, and, you know, really making sure they have a growth mindset in what we're doing. And when you kind of say that, you know, I'm bringing innovative ideas, well, they can shoot them down too. So well, they have a voice in really what we're doing as well. So culture is huge for us.
Yeah. Well, they do. And we can tell because, you know, Julie, my partner, and I, we got to be around your leadership team, and you can tell the things you're saying are not just things you're saying as a CEO. Your team is strong, decisive, truthful, transparent, brilliant. So I think culture at some point has to not become accidental or intentional. I don't think you could have had these kinds of people on your team had you not shifted over towards, I've got to make this a focus, and now look at the result. And we didn't meet the rest of your team, but I'm sure they're just as strong. And so with that behind you, you get to not carry the weight as the CEO of trying to figure all of this out. You get to say, hey team, what should we do now? And they know how to push into that service with clients, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, honestly, the investment in them also is bigger, because it's also where, you know, I can only do this for so long. You know, it's like a moment. And I hope to be, you know, relevant. I don't know, because, you know, TikTok is already confusing me. But it's also a matter. You know, it's also just a matter of, you know, if I invest in culture and in this career mindset, the succession of the legacy that we leave behind is more impactful. And I don't think I thought about succession, you know, when I started Honey, I wasn't like, where am I going to be at the end of this journey?
Right.
And now it's like, hey, I've put in a lot of blood, sweat, and lots of tears and lots of broken teeth from clenching at night.
Yes.
That you have to make sure that, you know, what is the end game? And for me, I hope that the end game is good people continuing on a good vision.
Yeah. I've never thought about this. It makes sense, though. An intentional investment in culture is actually an intentional investment in succession planning, because now you have choices of a legacy and probably choices of people that can carry that legacy with the same heart and passion. But you had to have that intention to build a team that had that same heart as you. So that is a really cool way to put that. I've never heard that before. So, well, Meghan, as we're kind of wrapping towards the end, I kind of want to step into thinking about you as an entrepreneur and niching and things like that. Just some standard things everybody has to fight through. So have you always been an entrepreneur, or you've always wanted to, or what was your journey to start a company? Why would you do that?
I think my husband would say I was always an entrepreneur, but
Okay.
I've always wanted to do it my way. And I think I've been in-house. I've been a brand manager, a director of communications for in-house brands. And I personally just always felt like, and I think a lot of agency owners out there who are listening may feel this, they did it because there was a gap, right? For me, working in food, beverage, and agriculture, I was always hiring a marketing firm, a PR firm, and a design firm. And then I was managing 3 different agencies who were kind of never on the same page.
I see. Okay.
And I always thought, like, why can't things be under one house with one strategy? So really that was the impetus of starting Honey was, let's serve this very, very unique niche that is, folks who get up, a lot of our clients are farmers first. Sometimes they're still getting up at sunrise, working in the fields, but it's important because they're not meant to be storytellers. They're just trying to feed us or provide us, beverages that we love.
That's so cool.
And I think, you've been on this journey, but when you're working with someone who has that much passion, you got to make sure that the end consumer who is eating or sitting at a table breaking bread with that feels that same passion. That's what I get to do. But, really it was intentional to niche. I will say that. It was intentional because I had so much passion for the niche. So going back to like what got me up in the morning, I love food, I love beverage, and I love that industry. Yeah. So it was easy for me to do that. And it put a lot of expertise in, I would say, our own education to focus on that niche. Today, I'll be totally transparent. We're 70% that niche. We're 30% outside our niche.
Yeah. That's pretty normal.
But that happens.
Yeah. Some niche.
Yeah. But it was intentional to do that. Now, the entrepreneurship, I think, keeps coming through. And I think, as I sat with you, not in a basement this time.
Nope.
I still want to innovate, and I still think my entrepreneurial spirit is there. Like, I always am thinking, what's next? What can we do differently? But it's under the umbrella of Honey now. And I like that a little bit. It probably contains me a little bit more.
Yeah, nice. Very cool. Well, I know a little bit, so I've heard some of your background, but your niche came from, like, you grew up in the industry, or you grew up in the Sonoma Valley, and that's what led you to why you would choose agriculture, food, and beverage. Is that right? Or what made you niche in that specifically?
2 things. One, my dad was in grocery. So I grew up in grocery. My dad worked for Safeway for years.
Wow.
And I ended up working there as a teenager and in my college years. So I just was fascinated about how people shop. And my dad would always talk to me about end caps and like why those were so important and how people shop the perimeter. And there's just all these things I learned along the way. And then I also grew up in Sonoma Valley, where wine was literally in like the water. It was every morning I would wake up and I'd see our vineyards, and the smell of crush is still something that I can't get out of my brain. And then it was just something that really like tugged at my heart, because I think I saw how much labor and work goes into what we eat and what we drink. And still to this day, I think that I'm fighting in food policy. I do a lot in DC, actually.
Cool.
And I try to really make sure that I lobby for, like institutional procurement, helping our local food purveyors buy locally so that our farmers locally have economic development. So I know that's a little side orbit about me, but food policy is a big thing. And I think it's good to understand how policy affects the way we eat too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's you getting much deeper into your niche, right? That's part of your passion, because I don't know what any of that is, but I know it affects what those farmers do. And I know you, as the CEO of this agency, feel very comfortable walking on dirt with a farmer, talking to them about grapes.
Anytime.
I don't know, you've probably done that a million times, which is just amazing. And of course, that's where our passions come from, is when we see that. I mean, it flows out of you. Even when we came to Sacramento, you were so particular about the restaurant we go to, because you know all the chefs in Sacramento, and you're like, you got to go to this one, and we're going to eat this food, because you know who's making it and putting it on the table. And it's such a, I don't know, it just flows through you. So we can tell it's your passion. I'm glad you're running an agency doing that. So it's very cool. Well, Meghan,
thank you.
We're out of time. And there's now and I won't get into this, but you're innovating in all kind of even operational models of how agencies even work and operate, which is, we can never get into how crazy that is, and how amazing it is, and how innovative it is. But people need to follow what you guys are doing. What's the best way people can follow you, read your stuff, read your team's things? What should they do next?
Well, we're workbyhoney.com. Our website is not only full of amazing new work and case studies we've put out, but a blog that's filled with a lot of culture. So feel free to go to workbyhoney.com. And then, of course, our Instagram is filled with, all the behind the scenes things that are going on from the team and the agency perspective. And, Jason, going back to what you just said, I hope I'm on again and we're talking about some crazy idea that I've put into place that other agencies can kind of consider as well. Different revenue models, I should say,
Well, yeah. And who knows, it'll probably become a staple of how agencies can operate. Somebody had to start that process and go through the fearful parts of building those things out. And why not Meghan Phillips, CEO of Honey, do that? So, well, Meghan, thank you so much. Yeah, why not? Thank you for being with us on the show in the woods, and just giving us such an awesome view of this podcast as we kick this off into a video cast. This is such a cool thing. And thank you for
Jason,
doing that, being on the show.
Happy 10 years.
Thank you.
That is incredible.
It is amazing.
Decade of businessology. So thank you for letting me be your guest, and congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. We'll see you. Take care, Meghan. Hey, thanks for joining us on the show. This is a great journey as we go into 10 years. So cool to have Meghan on starting in this video cast. So, we do this as a passion of love from Blummer CPAs. We love to serve the creative digital marketing agency profession, as they have a heart and a passion for what they do. So go to blummercpas.com and check us out there. There's a lot of content you can consume there. Go to jasonblummer.com. You can get some content there. And we'd love to see you in person. Actually, we're going to be in Memphis, Tennessee, October 7th through 9th, doing a pricing workshop at Creative Works Conference. Go to creativeworks.co. and you can sign up and come hang out with us live. We'd love to see you there. So thanks for joining us on the show. We'll check you next time. Take care.